Welcome to Minahasa channel, building literacy to tell the world about Christ. Today, we will delve into the extraordinary story of Christianity in Central and South Sulawesi. From fierce rejection to its eventual beautiful integration into the Bugis-Makassar and Toraja lands. Ready? Let's get started. Imagine Sulawesi before the arrival of Christianity. This is the land of several great kingdoms such as Gowa-Tallo, Bone, and Tana Toraja. With a culture deeply rooted in traditional religion and Islam, which had been introduced since the 17th century. The kingdom of Gowa-Tallo, under Sultan Alauddin, even becoming the center of Islam's spread in Eastern Indonesia. So it is understandable that Christianity arrived much later than in Maluku or Minahasa, due to the political dominance of Islam and strong local cultural resistance. This is not an easy journey. In the 19th century, around 1850, the first Protestant missionaries, Kruyt and A.C. from the Nederlandsch Zendeling Genootschap, arrived in South Sulawesi. But the response? Very cold. The Bugis-Makassar elite viewed Christianity as the religion of the colonizers. Kruyt did not give up. Instead of forcing the issue, he chose a wiser path, learning the and Makassar languages, approaching traditional leaders, and opening schools in Pare-Pare and Barru. However, the results were minimal. Imagine, there were only 12 Christians in 1860. Imagine, there were only 12 Christians in 1860. The struggle does take time. This story of rejection also occurred in Tana Toraja. In 1892, missionary J. van der Veen entered Toraja, but was immediately expelled. Why? Because it was considered a threat to the Rambu Solo death ritual and the highly respected animist belief system of adat Tadolo. Residents were concerned that their culture would be lost. However, the spirit never dies. In 1907, Antonia Aries van de Loostrecht and his wife Hendrika arrived. They tried a completely different approach. They did not come as outsiders seeking to change things, but lived in Toraja stilt houses, learned the local culture, and introduced Christianity through Bible stories adapted to the Toraja cosmology. This is a revolutionary step forward. They are building bridges, not walls. Unfortunately, tragedy struck in 1913. Van de Loostrecht was killed by the people of Silenin, who were still concerned that their traditional rituals would be displaced. This event became a turning point. The Dutch colonial government sent soldiers to protect the missionaries. But ironically, this action actually worsened the image of Christianity in the eyes of the community. Violence rarely brings about good results in the long run. But amid these challenges, there has been a breakthrough in Central Sulawesi. In 1916, missionary Piet ten Kate baptized the first group in Donggala. The key? He succeeded in convincing the Kali tribal leaders that Christianity does not prohibit customs or taboos. This is a concrete example of how dialogue and understanding can open hearts. And shortly thereafter, in the 1920s, the Protestant Church in South Sulawesi, GPSS, was established in Makassar. The congregation grew rapidly, especially among non-elite communities such as farmers and fishermen, who were often marginalized from the Bugis-Makassar feudal structure. This shows that faith can provide hope and equality for those who feel powerless. One of the most powerful tools in the spread of Christianity in Sulawesi was missionary work and education. More than 200 elementary schools were opened by 1940, teaching reading and writing, skills, and of course, the Bible. The graduates? They became extraordinary agents of change. They rejected slavery, fought for gender equality, and even preserved the Bugis-Makassar script Lontara to write the gospel. How beautiful it is when faith and culture can strengthen each other. Not only that, J. Kruyt also translated the New Testament into Bugis in 1913 and Makassar in 1928. This enables the spread of faith in local languages, making it easier for people to understand and accept. Language is the key to the heart and mind. So what is the legacy of Christianity in Sulawesi today? First, there is a contextual church identity. The Toraja Church, including the Minahasa Toraja Church, was born from the integration of adat Tadolo with Christianity. Rituals such as Rambu Solo are adapted to Christian liturgy, and traditional symbols such as tongkonan traditional houses become part of church architecture. This is a beautiful blend of universal faith and local wisdom. Similarly, the Protestant Church of Central Sulawesi, GPST, has developed a theology of creation, emphasizing harmony with nature in accordance with the Kali beliefs. This shows how faith can be relevant and integrated into the local, environmental, and cultural context. Education and empowerment are also important legacies. The Gospel School in Donggala in 1930 produced the first generation of local pastors, such as S.J. Waroka, who fought for the church's autonomy from the Dutch. In addition, female missionaries such as Hendrika van de Loostrecht inspired the Christian women's movement, which fought for women's right to education and rejected the practice of forced marriage. This is clear evidence that faith can be a liberating force. Christianity also had a major influence on culture. Church music was characterized by hymns in regional languages such as Bugis, Makassar, and Toraja, and even used traditional instruments such as the zither and the gambas. In the field of literature, Toraja writers such as B. Tankilo have written novels about the conflict between tradition and faith, which have become important literary works in Eastern Indonesia. This shows the new richness that comes from the interaction between faith and culture. Of course, this journey was not without challenges. Between 1970 and 1990, churches in South Sulawesi faced pressure from radical Islamic groups. However, they persevered through the ecumenical movement. Even with Nahdlatul Ulama and NU, an extraordinary example of how tolerance and cooperation between religious communities can overcome differences. And to this day, GPST and the Toraja Church are active in environmental advocacy, fighting deforestation and preserving local culture as part of their religious calling. This is a church that cares about the earth and ancestral heritage. So let's summarize some points about the Christian heritage in Sulawesi. First, the cultural approach or contextualization. Missionaries such as Kruyt and van de Loostrecht proved that the Christian faith must be conveyed in the local language and cultural context, not by force. Their legacy? Churches in Sulawesi are examples of positive syncretism between faith and tradition. Second, education as a tool for liberation. The Zending School produced a new elite that opposed colonialism and feudalism. His legacy? Literacy rates in Central and South Sulawesi were among the highest in Eastern Indonesia in the 1940s. What an extraordinary achievement! Third, local liberation theology. The Toraja Church developed a theology of ancestor veneration that respects tradition without worshipping it. This theological model has even been adopted by several other churches in Southeast Asia. Fourth, resilience in persecution. From the murder of missionaries in 1913 to modern political pressures, the church in Sulawesi has endured. The spirit of Minahasa, from Toraja, which means determination, has become the identity of the congregation. And fifth, contribution to nationalism. Christian figures in Sulawesi, such as Andi Mapanyuki, a national hero from Bone, fought for independence through diplomacy. The church also became a partner of the government in the development of education and health. In conclusion, the history of Christianity in Central and South Sulawesi is an inspiring story of transformation, from rejection to acceptance, from conflict to integration. The greatest blessing is not only the number of congregants, but a church that blends with the culture without losing its identity. As historian De Jong wrote, in Sulawesi, Christianity did not destroy customs, but rather perfected them like sunlight piercing through the mist of the Toraja Mountains. It's beautiful, isn't it? Churches in this region have now become guardians of local wisdom and witnesses that faith and culture can grow together as pillars of civilization. Thank you very much for listening to this inspiring story until the end. May this video broaden our horizons about the richness of Indonesia's history and culture. See you in the next story about the history of missions and churches in Indonesia. God bless you.